Let me bring you songs from the woods to make you feel much better than you could know. Better than you could dust you down from
Around the medicinal claims of wild plants. And is that just a bunch of, folklore medicine? What's all that all about?
Well, I guess there's a bunch of different ways that we could approach this question, but we know that there's a very, very long history of what we often term as folk use of plants, fungi, minerals, and even animals, animal parts for their use in natural medicine. And we've started to look at some of those claims. I say we, I'm talking about the scientists, the graduate students who are digging into these plants to look at what chemicals they contain and what's their activity. Sometimes they're looking at it in a petri dish, sometimes they're looking at it inside the human body. And they're realizing that there was a heck of a lot of information that was lost by the Aboriginal people because we're learning more and more and more that we have safe and effective medicines. And the safety part, I can't stress enough, because most of the herbal medicines are without the side effects, the contraindications, and the interactions between medications that we run into when we're buying these highly potent synthetic versions from the pharmacy.
Are there numbers to support this? Overdoses from herbal medications versus overdoses and deaths from...
No, yeah, there is. And there's a few different ways we can go about it. When we're talking about the efficacy, they've actually shown that there are great examples where herbal medicines are more effective than what you can buy in the store. Like elderberry has been shown more effective than Tamiflu, and that's, of course, at reducing flu symptoms. Ginger is more effective than Dramamine at reducing motion sickness. And then, so there's the efficacy part, and then we can talk also about the safety part. There's this great statistic, the number of deaths each year that are from known and predicted side effects.
Okay.
So 400,000 people a year.
400,000?
400,000 people die from a known side effect. So in other words, the doctor prescribes the medication, the patient dies, and the doctor says, yeah, I knew that could happen.
Wow.
And that number is approximately 25 with herbal medicine.
25,000?
No, just 25.
25
people
total?
Around the world, that's right.
Wow, okay.
So in terms of safety, it's pretty obvious. Our bodies are much more accustomed to dealing with natural chemicals that come from plants and fungi as opposed to super doses of synthetics.
Why would you want to go forage the landscape for food and medicine? Isn't the landscape ailing enough? With all of our population, wouldn't it do harm? Is there a line of thought that states that maybe if we do it in the right way, we're actually benefiting the landscape? Where are you with that?
Good question. I'm completely entrenched in the camp that we need to be out gathering, harvesting, and doing these kinds of activities on the landscape. And there's sort of two parts to that again. There's one part of will we eradicate all the plants, and the other part is what will they do to protect the landscape that harbors them. So for the first part, it's totally true that if we go out and we harvest kind of wantonly and without any conscious thought about the numbers that we take or how we harvest, we can certainly do damage. There's no doubt about it. But if our teaching about edible plants incorporates some of the technologies that the natives used, we'll see that we can actually increase numbers of plants, even though we might be collecting bulbs or other underground organs. In other words, it's lethal harvest to the plant. But we can do all kinds of things like the timing of collection or the part that we collect or what part we actually remove and what part we put back in the ground. These kinds of skills that the natives employed so that they didn't eradicate their food source. That's very short-sighted, right? Yeah. But then there's all kinds of plants that can tolerate collection. I mean, when we gather acorns from under an oak tree, we're not killing the oak tree. We just need to be sure that we don't take so many that we leave things for the wildlife that utilize them. Or when we collect the spring shoots of Japanese knotweed. I mean, it has such aggressive growth that if we harvested every shoot that came up for years, this plant would still be quite tolerant of our foraging activity,
right,
and still be producing shoots. I'm not saying that's what we do. I'm just saying there are plants that can tolerate heavy collection. But that second part of the question, or at least the second part that I saw, when we look at what are the benefits to having people out there gathering, and that's really important, because if people aren't out there gathering, they have no idea the importance of that piece of property or that open space that might exist in their town. And so they're very passive, they're very ambivalent about, oh, there's a new Walmart, there's a new Target, there's a new Dick's Sporting Good, whatever the case might be that's come in. Now you have that landscape flattened, another parking lot, and they're unaware of what they lost.
right.
And what they lost was this little increment of being able to feed and heal themselves in a very, very beneficial way. That's been lost. And we just keep having little increments of this taken away from us every day that development occurs.
So it sounds like an answer to the no impact approach of just leave the landscape alone like in a sterile bubble. You are more of a pro impact.
Yeah, and again, that we all make impact no matter what activity we do. We benefit things, we cause detriment to things. The point is learning to do that in a way that mimics wild species.
Nice.
And we were
That
wild species. We're no longer. We're very domestic. We live inside houses. We eat the equivalent of pet food in our processed packages. But we can learn how to act wild again.
Excellent.
And I think one of the best examples, look at what we do to corn. I mean, it's an annual, we cut it down, we chop it up, we eat it. No one's even worried about, when we're going to the supermarket, what their impact on the species of corn is, right? We eat as much of it as we want. But its use has all but guaranteed its survival in some form. Right. We recognize corn is this important staple here in the United States. We make all kinds of food. We refine it into all kinds of products, some good, some bad. But the point is that this culture, for better or for worse, considers corn very important. And because of that, not only do we protect the places where we grow corn, the agricultural fields, we even plow down forests to make new agricultural fields to plant it. We've guaranteed its survival because we use it.
Nice. And it sounds like to the detriment of our health.
Oh, yes, unfortunately, but that's just an example of when a plant, its use and its benefit becomes known to us, no matter how much of it we're collecting, we're making sure that we protect it through the generations. And we could be doing that with wild species instead.
So let me summarize what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, that wild edibles and medicinals are more nutritious. They are safer and in many cases more effective than pharmaceuticals. And if we interact with them responsibly with an increased awareness about their needs to propagate and their ability to help us out, we could increase the biomass and health of our region, of our immediate backyard.
That's what I'm saying.
As I sit and watch the trees, won't you tell me if I scream, will they bend down and listen to me?